But monopoly and efficiency, as I said, we're going to look at how monopolies do not produce at a point that allows them to be allocative or productive efficiency, or although they do have other type of efficiencies that allow them to achieve success. All right, so starter I went through with you. So we've previously introduced allocative and productive efficiency when we looked at perfect competition. So do you remember exactly where these two occurred, allocative and productive efficiency? You'll need to use your mics for this one. Okay. So here's our monopoly. All right. Where it should be operating and where it is operating are slightly different. Okay. So if this is, they've just made the MC a straight line just for ease. So don't worry about that too much, because it's just using it to compare with the supply curve in perfect competition. So our profit maximizing level of output is where MC is equal to MR. So it's operating here, okay, which gives us this price. It is not allocatively efficient because the price is not operating where P is equal to MC. At that price, it should be producing that level of output. Okay. It hasn't got an ATC on there, so we can't see that, but we can assume, I've looked at the other diagram, that the level of output to be productively efficient would also be higher. So as I said, a monopoly restricts output. Okay, it produces at a level which is less than desirable as far as efficiency is concerned. It does that so it can charge higher prices and therefore make more profit. Okay, so a monopoly is neither allocatively efficient nor productively efficient. Perfect competition, as we know, is both. Okay, and if we just go back to our original idea of socially optimal level, producing where MC is equal to MB, we can see in perfect competition it does that, whereas monopoly it doesn't. Again, it produces at a lower level. Therefore, in perfect competition, our social welfare, which is consumer surplus plus producer surplus, is maximized, whereas in a monopoly, we have welfare loss. Producers restrict output in order to charge a higher price. So the producers basically steal some of the consumer surplus to allow them to be better off, because this area they've gained here is greater than the area they lose here. But obviously, consumers are much worse off because consumers are paying a higher price than they should. So they're paying PM instead of the price here, PC, and they are receiving fewer goods. They're receiving QM instead of QPC. So overall, consumers are far worse off, and you get a deadweight loss, and you get this allocative inefficiency. So too little of the good is being produced. So just to recap that, as you can see, this is perfect competition in the long run. You make normal profit. You are allocatively efficient because price, PE, is equal to MC where you are operating, and it's productively efficient because MC is equal to ATC where you are operating at level of output. So long run perfect competition is productively efficient and allocatively efficient. You compare that to a monopoly, long run equilibrium, we are not producing where MC equals ATC, we're not producing here, and we are not producing where price is equal to MC, so we're not producing here. Okay, so lower level of output, higher price. All right, that's how productive and allocative efficiency in monopoly compares to that in perfect competition. So as we've said, in monopoly, there is an under allocation of resources. Fewer goods are produced, so price is greater than the marginal cost at the profit maximizing level of output. The monopolist often also produces it higher than the minimum average total cost and is therefore productively efficient, which can lead to something called X inefficiency. Okay, now X inefficiency just means you are not operating on your average total cost curve. Now, your average total cost curve represents the lowest average cost that you can produce a certain level of output on. So if you wanted to produce output of Q1, ATC1 is the lowest possible average cost you could do that for if you used all your resources as efficiently as possible. In a monopoly, there is no pressure to do that. Because there is no competition, you're not competing with anyone, there is no pressure to produce at the lowest possible cost. So monopolies tend to produce a level of output at a higher average total cost than is possible because of this lack of competition. And the gap between what they could produce it for and what they do produce it for, that highest average cost, is what is referred to as the X inefficiency. Now, that could be down to poor management because it doesn't really matter, or poor motivation. Again, people that aren't that bothered, there's no competition, they're not trying to beat anyone, therefore that leads to less efficient working. And that creates this idea of an X inefficiency. So whenever a firm operates at a point which is above their average total cost curve, they are said to be suffering from X inefficiency. So if monopolies are allocatively inefficient, they are productively inefficient, and they also suffer from X inefficiency, why do we have monopolies? Why are they allowed to exist? Well, there are occasions when monopolies can be desirable. Okay, now the first one is through product development and technological innovation. Monopolies, as we know, are able to make abnormal profits in the long run. And these abnormal profits can be used to invest in research and development. So protection from competition, so barriers to entry, allow firms to invest knowing that they will keep any profits that they have earned because no one else is going to come along and take them. Also, it creates further barriers to entry because obviously if you spend lots of money on research and development, if anyone wanted to compete with you, they would have to do similarly, which prevents firms from entering the market. So the presence of abnormal profits can lead to technological innovation. But obviously, that is only if the firm spends its abnormal profits on research and development. If it doesn't spend its abnormal profit on research and development, if it just goes to owners and shareholders, then that's not a benefit. If it's spent on research and development, that can be a benefit of a monopoly. There can be greater efficiency and lower costs arriving from technological innovation. So if they spend this money and they create new ways of production, their costs can be lower than if there was greater competition. Okay, because under perfect competition or other models, there is less incentive, less investment, and therefore your costs might stay higher than they otherwise could be. So although a monopoly is making abnormal profit, it might be able to operate at a lower cost point than in perfect competition because of the money spent on research and development and innovation. And then some of that may be passed on to consumers as lower prices. So we have, at the start of the lesson, we compared a monopoly with perfect competition using the same cost curves. However, a monopoly might be able to operate on a lower cost curve because of that investment. And then also we have economies of scale. Because monopolies operate on a large level in terms of output, they may be able to get abnormal profit and charge consumers lower prices than would occur in perfect competition if the savings available from economies of scale are great enough. And so this is a similar idea to the greater inefficiency, because both of them are about a lower marginal cost curve. Okay, so what we're talking about here is basically perfect competition would be operating on this marginal cost curve. Okay. However, in monopoly, if abnormal profit is invested, new technologies, innovation, a monopoly might be able to operate on this marginal cost curve. So perfect competition would have this price, because imagine in perfect competition, AR is equal to MR. So MC equals MR in perfect competition would be here. So price in perfect competition, quantity in perfect competition. Okay. Whereas with monopoly, they could operate at a lower point. They'd be operating, if they had a lower MC curve, their MC equals MR would give price monopoly here, which is a lower price in perfect competition, and quantity monopoly here, a higher quantity than perfect competition. So although they are not being productively or allocatively efficient, and although they are making abnormal profit, they are still producing at a lower price and a higher quantity than would be possible in perfect competition, because the abnormal profit has led to advancement in production methods and techniques. Okay. If we were in school, we would have a speed drawing competition now. Well, when you finished your notes, but obviously that's not going to be possible. So what I want you to do is, obviously you need to explain in your own words why a monopoly might sometimes be desirable.